everybody, and thanks for checking out this episode of the Raccoon Club podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Facebook and what I sincerely believe is going to be the shitstorm that's going to hit Facebook as more and more is revealed about how Russian hackers used Facebook to influence the 2016 U.S. elections. So if you're not aware, the Russians influenced the 2016 U.S. elections, and they did a good chunk of that on Facebook. From the Daily Beast exclusive, Facebook won't reveal if Russia targeted you during the election. The article goes on to say, users may never know if they were targeted during the election or are still being targeted now. Federal investigators believe Facebook servers contain a wealth of hard data that could shed light on the central question of American politics in 2017. Did Donald Trump's campaign collude with the Russian government? But Facebook told the Daily Beast on Wednesday that, quote, "We aren't well placed to know if something like coordination occurred between the Trump campaign and Russia." Facebook's comments come 1 week after the company confirmed it unknowingly sold 3,000 ads to a Russian propaganda farm. The article goes on to write about how over 470 inauthentic accounts were pushing over 3,000 advertisements during 2017. And they suspect that this is likely was used in the 2016 election as well. Now, because it's affecting the 2016 election, this has fallen on the desk of Robert Mueller. And if you're not familiar with who Robert Mueller is the guy who's going after Donald Trump. He's the special investigator that's been assigned by the FBI to look into if there were any shady dealings going on during the election of 2016. So in an article in The Independent by Andrew Buncombe, to quote, "Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller reportedly has a red-hot focus on the way Russia sought to influence the 2016 U.S. election by the anonymous spreading of propaganda, much of which was in support of Donald Trump via social media." The article is quoting Bloomberg News as saying that the special prosecutor appointed after Mr. Trump fired James Comey in May is seeking information from companies such as Facebook and Twitter. Last week, Facebook revealed it had sold $100,000 of adverts to fake Russian Facebook accounts bought by a mysterious company linked to the Kremlin, which posted divisive advertisements about race, gay rights, and gun control. Russians have been using Facebook as a means to disseminate propaganda, and in particular, disseminate divisive propaganda. So propaganda that they know will push the needle one way or the other during an election. So let's take a step back and sort of look at why you would do something like this. In any election, there are certain things that are sort of baked into the pie. You know that a certain group of people will always vote Republican, and a certain group of people will always vote Democratic. So there are certain people whose opinions will never change no matter what you do. But what you can do is influence people that are independent or influence people that are really, really committed to a very specific cause. And what the Russians seem to have done is focus in on people who have hot button issues. In this particular case, things like race, gay rights, and gun control. So if you're, for example, someone that is a Second Amendment advocate, but you're not necessarily all that politically active, if I can focus you and use your red button of gun control issues, of Second Amendment issues, to convince you that it is a life or death situation for you to go out and vote, that's actually a very common strategy that political consultants and political operatives do all the time. It was one that was actually used by George W. Bush's campaign against John McCain when George W. Bush was running for president. George W. Bush's campaign sent out what's called a push poll. A push poll is a telephone poll where people call up and they ask you a question that is not meant to actually get an answer, but is meant to push your opinion in a certain way. So in this case, they were calling up and asking people, would you feel less about John McCain if you found out that he had an interracial child? And they focused specifically on that because they wanted to hit certain people's red hot button of race. And a lot of people credit that push poll to why George W. Bush was able to beat John McCain. So what the Russians are doing is the digital and social media version of that. They're using essentially a digital push poll, but instead of a poll, they're using advertisements to push people's opinion in a certain way. So how bad is it getting for Facebook? Well, according to a CNBC article, it's getting bad enough that it's catching the attention of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat from Virginia, recently said he believes that Facebook announcement, the one about the $100,000 spend and the 470 profiles, was merely the tip of the iceberg. And I actually have to agree with him. I'm beginning to think that the reason that Facebook is being so stubborn about this is not that they don't want to help in this investigation. I don't think they're complicit with the Russians. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg is working for Vladimir Putin. What I do believe is that they're terrified of what their data is actually going to show about their user base. They're terrified about what their data may show about what the real number of users actually are. So in order for me to explain my suspicions about Facebook, I need to sort of step back a bit and explain a little bit more about how Facebook's business model works. When you're a social media app like Facebook, one of the ways that you are valued in the stock market, one of the ways you are valued by investors is by your user base. The more users you have, the more valuable your company becomes. And it's not just because you have a whole lot of people using your app. The idea, of course, is that the more people you have using your app, number one, the more people you can sell things to. But number two, and this is how Facebook makes most of its money, the more people you have on your app, the more likely you are to get advertisers, because advertisers are always looking for the most effective way to advertise their products. Social platforms like Facebook are ideal for advertisers in theory because they allow you to target an audience very easily and very inexpensively, and you can also track the results from it because of the metrics that the digital platform can provide you. Digital platforms such as Facebook offer an advantage to advertisers in a way that television and radio can't. Part of that is the analytics. Part of that is the ability, because it's a digital platform, to send back analytics to a company and say, this is what the results of your ad campaign was. This is how many women clicked. This is how many men clicked. This is how many people from different age groups and demographics clicked. You can slice and dice the data in a million different ways. And if you're spending millions of dollars a year on advertising, any percentage of efficiency that you can squeeze out of your advertising dollars means a lot to you, because it means more sales, number one, or you're able to do more with less of an advertising budget. So digital properties such as Twitter, such as Facebook, such as Instagram, such as Snapchat are very sought after by advertisers because of the nature of those kinds of analytics. Now, earlier I said that Facebook mentioned that they were not in a position to know if there was any collusion between the Russians and the Trump campaign. And I have to say, when I read that, I laughed out loud. I laughed out loud because that is the most insane thing I've ever heard a tech company say. Facebook lives and breathes on its analytics. Facebook is a data company. It's not a social media marketing company. That's their brand. Their value to marketers, their value to advertisers is that they are a data analytics company. What they're able to do is to say, look at the hundreds of millions and billions of people that use Facebook. We are able to take all those users and figure out what they like, what they don't like, what their friends like, what they're more likely to like, what they're more likely to buy, what brands are they attracted to, what brands are they not attracted to, are they politically active, are they politically agnostic. That kind of data is what makes Facebook valuable. The only way you get that data is with a strong analytics engine. If Facebook is admitting that they have no way of knowing, or they're not in a position to know if the Russians collaborated with the Trump campaign, or if there's any collusion at all, it almost seems to imply that, well, our analytics programs are not that good. We just don't know. Bullshit. There's no way they don't know. There's no way that they cannot possibly work back the algorithm, work back the ad buy, and find out where those ad buys came from, who made them, what time they were made, what the targeting specifics were, and who else those accounts were linked to and maybe coordinated with. Everything online leaves a digital trail. It is almost impossible to cover up your footsteps online. The fact that Facebook is saying that they don't think they can find out or they're not in a position to know is just not believable. I don't find it to be credible. So having explained that, there's another piece of the puzzle that I think is important to know when it comes to social media companies such as Facebook, such as Twitter, about how they suddenly become extraordinarily nervous when people start poking around their user base. I mentioned earlier that one of the ways that a social media platform is valued is in their number of users. And that means that anything that disputes the total number of users that they officially put forward potentially threatens their stock value, potentially threatens their revenue stream. I want to show you how easy it is to manipulate Facebook and other social media platforms. From adweek.com, and if you're not familiar, Adweek is one of the top magazines and digital properties that relates to advertising and marketing. They're an authority in the category of advertising and marketing. The article is titled, "This Influencer Marketing Shop Created Fake Accounts to Prove That the Industry is Full of Ad Fraud." The article is written by a gentleman called Evan Asano, and Evan founded an influencer marketing agency called MediaKicks. And what he decided to do was put together an experiment to see if he could prove that it is actually relatively easy to commit ad fraud online. So what Evan did was he ran an experiment. He actually created 2 fake profiles on Instagram and then try to boost the number of followers those 2 fake profiles have to see what would happen. So, to continue the article, by using services readily available online, we bought followers and engagement for both of these accounts, about 50,000 and 30,000 fake followers, respectively. Facebook functions in the exact same way. Facebook has a vested interest in maintaining a high count of users because the value of their brand and the value of their advertising spots relies heavily on that. This is actually all coming to a head this year. According to adage.com, again, another one of the authorities in the category, to quote the article, marketers might be voting with their wallets in 2017 as faulty Facebook metrics, fake news, a pervasive ad fraud problem, and poor transparency in the ad tech ecosystem has 50% of advertisers saying they won't spend ad dollars on platforms they consider risky. So what's happening is that advertisers are finally becoming wise to what's going on with Facebook, is that they're beginning to realize that, wait a minute, your metrics are bullshit. To borrow a term from the article, your ad tech ecosystem is bullshit, and we no longer trust the numbers we're getting from you. This is a huge deal because Facebook absolutely relies on ad dollars. That's the whole business model they have. And what people are realizing is that Facebook is not nearly as clean as they thought they were, that Facebook is not nearly as reliable in terms of delivering quality leads and quality followers that they thought they were. And this comes to absolutely no surprise to anyone who's been paying attention, because it is remarkably easy to set up a fake profile ecosystem on Facebook. Just the other month, Ad Age again wrote an article called, quote, "Next Level MethBot Ad Fraud Scam Cost Advertisers at least $3 million per day." To quote the article, a complex ad fraud scheme has been siphoning $3 million to $5 million per day since October from the largest U.S. brands and media companies, making it the most profitable and advanced operation seen by the industry to date. So this is what the MethBot scam was, very simply put. Russians sold ad space to major brands that they said they had on publications such as the New York Times. This isn't unusual because a lot of ad companies buy ad space in bulk and then resell that space. So to many brands, this would not have been an unusual